Hello, everyone. It's Leah here with Running USA, and I'm so excited to be back with another edition of Five Questions. And today, our guest is a very special international superstar, and he's coming to us from Denmark. Welcome, Kristian Midtgaard.
Thanks a lot, and extremely happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited to be chatting with you. We've been talking about getting together for quite a while now, about since we left St. Louis back in February. So it's good to catch up and hear about where you've been working, which is all over the world. But you're with Roster Athletics, so I'd like to start there as a baseline. Tell us a little bit about Roster Athletics, what you do there, and what the company is all about.
Yeah, that's true. We have really tried to find the time to meet up. And sorry, I've been traveling, but as we also chit-chatted about before we started this one, was also that I mean the running industry and track and field industry has really become true global, which I think is amazing, and it just gives you opportunity to travel the world. But coming back to Rust Athletics, then we actually started back in 2016 during the World Indoor Championship in Portland, meaning our founder, also called Christian, also Danish, was sitting at the stands together with a group of friends, not originating out of track and field. And for anyone that has been on a track and field stadium, there's just a lot of things going on. You have people jumping, throwing, coming in, going out. Um, and to be honest, these friends that were still highly engaged in sport had a hard time following. They really had a hard time engaging and understanding what was happening, what was going on. And I actually think that was kind of the trigger saying, okay, how can we make it more interesting, more fun, more engaging to participate in the sport of athletics? Or maybe I'm always confusing a little bit about athletics, track and field compared to where or who I'm talking to. But that was kind of like the trigger. And then we were like, okay, we need to do something to make it more engaging from a technical standpoint. Um, the first thought that was actually to build a fantasy game. So basically a fantasy game around track and field and running. So like, from fantasy football or championship manager or whatever. But we fast realized in order to do so, we need all the data. We need to know who are the participants, who are the runners, who are the athletes, how does the start list look like, what is the results. We need to have results in real life or in real time. And then we started talking to all the organizers, and there was a huge issue with the whole competition race management side of things. So we we kind of took that in instead, and then ever since we have been building on making it easy to be an organizer, and on top of that, more interesting, more fun, more engaging for everyone to follow.
So just to clarify, for those in our audience who might not be familiar, the term athletics in Europe is usually used to describe track and field as opposed to how we refer to it here in the US. And that being the case, it would be interesting to hear from you just a little bit about what the athletics or track and field scene is in the EU these days. Tell us a little bit what it looks like, both at the higher professional level and then maybe recreationally as well.
Yeah, so and that is true. And we do originate out of track and field because from the beginning we kind of said, okay, we want to be the best competition management platform for track and field organizers. If we look at that landscape on a global level today, then it is definitely evolving. There's also a lot of challenges. I mean, in terms of engaging young people, the whole club structure, the whole um, building of the global attraction of the sport. It does have a hard time in track and field. I mean, you have amazing numbers when you look at the 100 meter for the Olympics or something like that. But on a grassroots root level, at least in some areas of the world and in some specific countries, that sport is really struggling. For us as a company, then for us, track and field has always been track and field on stadia, but also track and field meaning running outside the stadium. But we have just taken it a bit like in two phases where we said, okay, we want to prioritize and focus 100% on all the on stadium, meaning track and field activities like javelin, long jump, 100 meter. Um, but now over the last year, we have said, okay, now it is time to really embark and engage in all the non-stadium, meaning all the running, all the non-stadia activities.
Mm. So tell us a little bit about what's innovative about your platform. What features have you created that have helped solve some of those problems that you identified initially?
Yeah, so I think going back to that original mission vision on how to make it easy to be an organizer. From day one, we kind of said, okay, we want to have a global approach. We want to have a self-served approach. So that's one of the things that we believe in the whole self-service, the whole empowering people to be the organizer, meaning that we should create a tool that they can use themselves and not necessarily hire third parties. We are happy to work with third parties, but at least just give them the opportunity to maybe create and build more knowledge in-house if they want potentially save costs. And I think maybe that is also where we distinguish between some of our colleagues in the industry, where we're basically trying to build like a one-stop self-service race management and registration platform where we then open up with APIs and potential integrating with the third parties.
Tell me a little bit about what your presence is in the US at this point. Do you have clients here? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I mean, like professionally, I visited US the first time 1.5 years ago. That was at the USATF annual meeting in December 2024, I guess it was. And that was our first step into US. So even though we are actually a US-based company, we have built a lot of the client base and a lot of our activities outside US. We see a huge potential in US and have now started to make inroads, making connections, and doing a lot of quote unquote test activities in different areas, meaning everything from high school competitions or track and field events, but also to hill, fell, recreational, and larger scale road running. But we are still at an early stage in US, but it's super nice to see an appetite and an interest to engage with us.
And then you were back here, obviously, in February to join us in St. Louis. Tell me a little bit about what the conference was like for you. What were some of the conversations that you had, and what did you walk away from taking with you that was valuable?
Yeah, now I've been fortunate enough to participate in two times running USA conferences, and it's super motivating and inspiring. So also a huge kudos and a shout out to Running USA. I don't know if this is advertisement, but I do recommend everyone within the industry to become a member and join the conferences. I mean, they're really good. So thanks a lot. Um, of course, last time, like any other places, there was a lot of discussion on AI and how AI will affect the industry, how it will affect all the different stakeholders, no matter whether you are a sponsor or a race organizer or registration platform or whatever. Um, and yes, I also believe that AI will change a lot, and it is super interesting. But what I also found really interesting in St. Louis, that was also some of the discussions on how we as an industry grow on a global level. So how do we actually attract more interest, meaning resources, finances into the sport? How do we share best practices? How do we make sure that we as a running industry become even more attractive and continue to grow? I mean, we have enormous momentum right now, and how do we build on that as a joint industry across being potentially competitors or being different stakeholders? And I think that was probably some of the most valuable conversations I took part in during the last conference.
Well, thank you for the positive feedback. We really appreciate that. Do you feel like there is specific momentum around those themes that you just mentioned in terms of having more international cohesion?
Yeah, I do think there is. I mean, it's super positive to see the uptake and momentum that a lot of people within the industry experience here post pandemic. I mean, participation is of course increasing. We see breaking major events almost coming out every week. We see sold out events. We see new records and ballads, etc., etc. So I think that kind of cocktail of coming out of the pandemic where everyone was kind of like, oh, what is going on? Maybe everything is just not coming by themselves. And then starting to see huge growth. I think that really initiated a lot of momentum and a lot of like, okay, how can we continue to have that growth? And I think that's a really valuable discussion because as an industry, as a sport, I think it is important that we don't kind of become complacent and just say, "Oh, it's super nice. Now we are selling out, so we don't need to do anything." Because I think as a sport and an industry, we need to continue to grow. We need to look at how do we continue to stay relevant. How do we cater to even more different archetypes, more different segments. And I think that's very interesting, but I also see that's one of the growth opportunities for us as a sport.
This ties in nicely to the next thing I wanted to ask you about. And I know that you had the chance to attend the World Athletics Africa Running Conference shortly after you were with us at Running USA. Tell us a little bit about that. What was the conversation there? What are some of the challenges? And what does the market look like in Africa right now?
It is definitely very different from US or Europe for that matter of sake. It was a great experience to be part of the conference. I was primarily there to talk about digitalization. Um, but I think there's some huge structural differences. And if you look at a conference like that, then it was attended by a lot of presidents, a lot of people on political levels, a lot of people tied into the national governing bodies, so the whole governance scene. And I think that's a difference between where we are in Africa or potentially other emerging market compared to where we are right now in US or in US in Europe where I'm located right now, where there's the market is much more mature. It's kind of more developed, meaning there's a lot of private and commercial entities in play. However, I do see a huge potential in the emerging markets. There seems to be a great appetite for participation. There seems to be a great appetite for commercial stakeholders. That conference really made it clear for me there is a great appetite from the governance and political level as well, which I think is very important to actually grow the sport. So that was a long answer, but I do see huge potential in the emerging markets.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure we'll be learning much more as time goes forward. I wanted to wrap up talking a little bit about the evolution of race management technology. What do you think we can expect coming in the next few years? Is it all about AI? Are there any other trends that you see that are top of mind?
I mean, definitely the easy answer would say it's all about
Mm.
AI. Um, and again, it will drive a lot of change. I mean, it will affect how people are being supported. So how can a race organizer drive down admin on support, et cetera, et cetera? It will affect basically every level of race organizing, but also race participation, et cetera, et cetera. That being said, then I was attending a webinar earlier today, actually, where one of the founders of let's just say, a huge registration portal, he basically said, "Yeah, I agree with all the AI, but I actually still think it's important to understand that we as an industry, we as a sport, we are not tech. We are still a human experience." And for me, that resonated really, really well, saying, yeah, but yeah, it's true. AI will change a lot of things, but what we are still all about, that is actually lacing up, getting out there together with other people and get a real human experience. And if you see some of the uptake in social running, in those unorganized running communities, um, then I see that as a sign of the appetite of also the human experience being actually social about physical activities in one way or another. Um, and and then coming back to where I see a huge potential for anyone within the sport, that is to be able, in one form or another, to create that personal experience, no matter if it's a personal experience of one participant in a 50,000 participant major event, or whether it's a one personal experience in a social running club for 25 people on a Friday morning. Um, so I think we as a tech company, but I actually think all stakeholders in the business, I think the ones that is really getting that piece right will have huge advantages.
Given that response, I should ask, what is the run club or run crew scene like in Denmark where you are? Is there one?
Yeah, there definitely is one. I mean, first of all, running in Denmark is kind of crazy. I mean, we are a very small country. We're only 6 million people, but I still think we will have close to 1 million people participate in a road race in 2026, which
Oh,
is
wow.
crazy numbers. That we will probably have plus 2,000 organized road races in one year. We have some of the biggest events in the world. We have like a company relay that will probably do plus 150,000 in one event. We have the World Half coming up in Copenhagen. That was 65,000 people. It sold out basically, yeah, very, very fast. Um, so I don't know what it is, but Danes are just crazy about running. But we are also crazy about running in multiple forms. And I think one of the major trends that actually started pre-pandemic, that was some commercial entities that started to make small running chapters that could be, yeah, I mean, maybe the best example, that's Mikkel Running Club, so the Danish microbrewery that actually started a global running community out of small chapters where you actually meet up in the bar. You go for a run and then you get a cold beer afterwards. They grew that pre-pandemic to amazing numbers. And now post-pandemic, we see a lot of kind of the same coming up from small bakeries to retail shops that is really offering different levels of social running, community running, supportive running, et cetera, et cetera. So again, Danes, we are crazy about running, but we also see running in multiple different shapes and forms.
That's so interesting. What a great data point to kind of close on. 6 million people, 1 million participants in road races in a single year. Yeah, awesome. Kristian, this has been so much fun and so interesting. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we let you go?
No, I'm just again, I'm privileged and happy to be part of the community and the industry. So I just hope to see a lot of you out there. And of course, I'm always available. So if anyone want to chat or follow up on anything here, then just reach out.
Thank you so much. It was great to get to know you.
Thank you.